Write this on a paper and place it under your pillow for 3 days and 3 nights. Close your eyes and take a deep breath. Feel the gentle weight of your body settling into stillness as the day's chaos melts away. The soft glow of moonlight filters through your window, casting ethereal shadows that dance across the walls like ancient spirits sharing timeless secrets. This is your sacred moment, the precious time between the bustling energy of day and the deep stillness of night. In this quiet space, your breathing naturally slows, matching the peaceful rhythm of the sleeping world outside. The air feels different at this hour, charged with possibility and potential. It's as if the universe itself is leaning in closer, waiting to share its wisdom with those who are ready to listen. You might be wondering why this particular moment holds such power. Perhaps you've noticed how clarity often comes in these quiet hours, when the world's constant chatter fades away. There's something magical about nighttime, a subtle shift in reality when the boundaries between what is and what could be grow delightfully thin. Picture yourself seated at a simple wooden desk, its surface illuminated by a single lamp. Before you lies a pristine sheet of white paper, its blank surface holding infinite possibilities. In your hand, you hold a pen filled with ink the color of deep ocean waters. Such simple tools. Yet in the right hands at the right moment, they become instruments of transformation. Have you ever wondered why certain traditions speak of the night as a time of power? Why ancient wisdom keepers chose the hours after sunset to perform their most sacred rituals? The answer lies in understanding how energy flows through our world, how intention shapes reality, and how the simplest actions, performed with purpose and belief, can set in motion waves of change that ripple through our lives in unexpected ways. As you sit here in this moment of potential, remember that every great journey begins with a single step. Every profound transformation starts with one decisive moment when someone chooses to believe in possibility. Tonight, you're being invited to participate in a ritual as old as writing itself, a practice that has transformed countless lives through the ages. In the soft embrace of night, surrounded by possibility, you're about to discover how a few written words, charged with intention and amplified by ancient wisdom, can unlock doors you never knew existed. The universe has been waiting for this moment, for you to accept this invitation to change. The only question that remains is, are you ready to begin? Your journey starts with understanding that words are more than mere symbols on a page. They are vessels of power, carriers of energy, bridges between the world of dreams and the realm of reality. When wielded with purpose, especially during these sacred nighttime hours, they become keys that can unlock the abundant potential that has always existed within and around you. What happens next depends entirely on your willingness to embrace this ancient practice, to trust in the wisdom that has been passed down through generations. But before we delve deeper into the method itself, let's explore why this particular ritual has survived the test of time, and why, in our modern world of digital convenience, it holds more power than ever before. Long before the age of digital screens and instant messages, our ancestors understood something profound about the power of written words. In the temples of ancient Egypt, hieroglyphs weren't merely decorative symbols or historical records. They were considered living vessels of power, carefully crafted to manifest reality itself. The priests and priestesses who inscribed these sacred texts believed that the act of writing was a form of creation, capable of shaping the very fabric of existence. This understanding wasn't unique to Egypt. Across the ancient world, from the Sanskrit mantras of India to the runic inscriptions of Norse tradition, writing was revered as a bridge between the mundane and the miraculous. The Hebrew tradition speaks of the 22 letters of their alphabet as the very building blocks used to create the universe. In Japanese Shinto temples, worshippers still write their wishes on small wooden plaques called ema, believing that the act of writing itself begins to bridge the gap between dream and reality. But why does this matter in our modern world? In an age of technological wonders, why should we turn to such a simple practice? The answer lies in understanding how human consciousness interacts with the physical world. Modern quantum physics has revealed something extraordinary, that the act of observation affects the behavior of particles at the most fundamental level. In other words, consciousness itself plays a role in shaping reality. When we write with intention, especially during the receptive hours of night, we become both the observer and the creator, focusing our consciousness in a way that ripples through the quantum fabric of existence. Think of it this way. Every night, as the world grows quiet and the usual distractions fade away, your mind enters a more receptive state. The analytical left brain slowly yields to the intuitive right brain. This is when the barrier between your conscious and subconscious mind becomes more permeable, creating the perfect conditions for planting seeds of intention. The ritual we're about to explore takes advantage of this natural rhythm. It combines the ancient understanding of written words as vessels of power with the modern scientific recognition of consciousness as a creative force. By performing this simple practice during the optimal hours of night, you're not just writing words on paper. You're engaging in an act of conscious creation that has been refined and proven effective across millennia. But don't take my word for it. The true power of this practice lies in its results, and for that, let me share the story of someone who discovered it during one of the most challenging periods of her life. Sarah Morgan stared at her laptop screen, the harsh blue light illuminating her face in the growing darkness of her small home office. Another rejection email. This one stung more than the others. It was for a position she was perfectly qualified for, at a company she had dreamed of joining since graduation. The words, "We have decided to proceed with other candidates," seemed to float mockingly before her eyes. Running her fingers through her already disheveled hair, she glanced at the sticky notes covering her desk, reminders of bills to pay, deadlines to meet, and an ever-growing list of job applications to submit. 6 months had passed since the startup she worked for had unexpectedly folded, taking her dreams of career advancement and financial stability with it. What had started as a temporary setback was beginning to feel like a permanent state of struggling. The worst part wasn't even the dwindling savings or the mounting stress. It was the feeling of being stuck, as if she were trapped in a maze where every turn led to another dead end. Her usual optimism, once as natural as breathing, had been replaced by a heavy cloud of doubt that followed her everywhere. That's when her phone chimed with a message. It was from her grandmother Elena, asking her to come over for tea. Sarah almost declined. She wasn't in the mood for company, and Elena's persistent positivity sometimes felt at odds with her current reality. But something in her grandmother's message was different this time. "There's something I need to share with you," it read. "Something that helped me when I first came to this country with nothing but hope and a secret passed down through generations." Sarah's finger hovered over the screen. She thought about declining, about crawling into bed and letting the disappointment of another failed opportunity wash over her. But somewhere deep inside, a small voice whispered that perhaps this was important. Sometimes the universe speaks to us in the quietest moments, through the simplest invitations. And sometimes the wisdom we need most comes from unexpected sources. 20 minutes later, she found herself walking up the familiar path to Elena's Victorian-style house. The garden, as always, was a riot of carefully tended herbs and flowers, their sweet fragrance mixing with the approaching evening air. The porch light cast a warm glow, and through the window, Sarah could see her grandmother's silhouette moving about the kitchen. As she raised her hand to knock, Sarah couldn't have known that this ordinary Tuesday evening was about to change everything. She couldn't have guessed that in her grandmother's kitchen, among the familiar scents of chamomile tea and freshly baked cookies, she would discover an ancient practice that would transform not just her circumstances, but her entire understanding of how reality works. The door opened before she could knock, and Elena stood there with knowing eyes and a gentle smile. "Perfect timing," she said, pulling Sarah into a warm embrace that smelled of lavender and wisdom. "The tea is ready, and so are you." Elena's kitchen had always been a place of comfort for Sarah. The walls were a warm honey color that seemed to glow in the evening light, and dried herbs hung in neat bundles from the ceiling beams. A collection of delicate teacups, each with its own story, lined the open shelves. But tonight, something felt different about the familiar space. There was an energy, an anticipation that Sarah couldn't quite explain. "Sit," Elena gestured to the worn wooden chair at the small breakfast table, the same spot where Sarah had done her homework as a child. The older woman moved with practiced grace, preparing 2 cups of tea from a steaming pot. The fragrance of chamomile and something else, was it rosemary, filled the air. "You're carrying your worries the same way I once carried mine," Elena said softly, placing a delicate teacup in front of Sarah. She reached up to a high shelf and brought down an ornate wooden box, its surface carved with intricate spirals and symbols Sarah had never noticed before. Before I tell you about this box, I want you to understand something important about our family's history. Elena settled into her chair, her fingers tracing the patterns on the box's lid. When I left Ukraine, I had nothing but this box and the wisdom it contained. Your great-grandmother pressed it into my hands the night before I left. This, she told me, is worth more than gold or jewels. It's our family's greatest inheritance. Sarah leaned forward, her own troubles momentarily forgotten. She had heard stories of her grandmother's immigration before, but never this part. Elena opened the box carefully, revealing sheets of crisp white paper, their edges softly worn with age. Each page was covered in flowing handwriting, some in Ukrainian, others in English, and a few in what looked like an even older script. These are more than just papers, Elena continued, her voice taking on a rhythmic quality that reminded Sarah of storytellers in ancient halls. They are testament to a practice that has been in our family for generations, a way of speaking directly to the universe, of aligning our energy with the natural flow of abundance that surrounds us all. She selected one of the papers, holding it up so Sarah could see the faded blue ink. Every woman in our family has learned this ritual when she was ready. It's a simple practice, deceptively so, but in this simplicity lies its power. With nothing more than paper, pen, and properly focused intention, our ancestors have shaped their destinies, opened doors that seemed forever closed, and created opportunities where none seemed to exist. Sarah found herself drawn to the papers, feeling an inexplicable connection to these written words from the past. But how? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. How can writing on paper change anything? Elena smiled, the kind of smile that held generations of knowing. The universe, my dear, speaks in many languages, but one of its favorites is the language of intention. When we write with purpose, especially during the sacred hours of night, we're doing more than putting words on paper. We're creating a bridge between what is and what could be. She began laying out specific items on the table: a sheet of pristine white paper, a pen with deep blue ink, and a small crystal that caught the kitchen's warm light. Tonight, I'm going to teach you what my mother taught me, and what her mother taught her. It's time for you to learn our family's ritual of the night letters. Sarah felt a subtle shift in the air, as if the very atmosphere was responding to Elena's words. Outside, the evening had deepened into true night, and the kitchen windows reflected their images like mirrors against the darkness. The moment felt ancient and new all at once, a thread connecting her to countless women before her who had sat in similar kitchens, learning these same secrets. Elena reached into the wooden box again, this time removing a small journal bound in midnight blue leather. The ritual must be performed in the hour before sleep, she explained, her voice taking on the cadence of a teacher sharing ancient secrets. This is when the veil between our conscious and unconscious mind grows thin, when our intentions can sink deeply into the fertile soil of possibility. She placed the white paper before Sarah, smoothing it with careful hands. The paper must be white, pure as fresh snow. White represents new beginnings, infinite possibility. It's a blank canvas awaiting the strokes of your intention. Next came the pen, its barrel gleaming with a deep oceanic blue. The ink must be blue, the color of the throat chakra, of truthful communication with the universe. This is how we speak our desires into being. Sarah watched, mesmerized, as her grandmother demonstrated the proper way to hold the pen. Your grip should be gentle but firm, like holding a small bird. Too tight, and you restrict the flow of energy. Too loose, and your intention lacks direction. The words themselves, Elena continued, must be chosen with care. 3 words, no more, no less. 3 is the number of creation, of completion. Think of it, past, present, future. Beginning, middle, end. Birth, life, transformation. The universe speaks in patterns of 3. She took Sarah's hands in hers, her skin warm and soft with age. But here's the most important part. The words must resonate with your soul. They must vibrate with truth when you speak them silently to yourself. Empty words, chosen without feeling, are like seeds scattered on concrete. They cannot take root. Sarah nodded, feeling the weight of this knowledge settling into her bones. How do I know which words to choose? Elena smiled, her eyes twinkling in the warm kitchen light. Close your eyes. Think of what you truly desire. Not just a job, but what that job represents. Not just money, but what abundance means to you. Let the words rise from your heart, not your head. Following her grandmother's instruction, Sarah closed her eyes. The scent of chamomile tea and ancient paper filled her lungs as she breathed deeply. In the darkness behind her eyelids, 3 words began to form, glowing like stars. Growth, freedom, purpose. Yes, Elena whispered, as if she could see the words forming in Sarah's mind. Those are your words. Now write them with intention. Each letter is a vessel for your energy. Each stroke of the pen is an act of creation. Sarah opened her eyes and began to write. The blue ink flowed smoothly across the white paper, each letter formed with conscious care. As she wrote, Elena spoke softly about the final steps of the ritual. Fold the paper 3 times, always toward your heart. Place it under your pillow before sleep, letting the words work their magic in the realm of dreams. For 7 nights, you'll write the same words using a fresh paper each time. 7 nights for 7 chakras, 7 days of creation, 7 stages of transformation. The kitchen clock ticked softly in the background as Sarah completed her first paper. The words seemed to shimmer slightly in the lamplight, as if already charged with potential. And then what happens? She asked, carefully folding the paper according to Elena's instructions. Her grandmother gathered the supplies, returning them to their places with reverent care. Then, my dear, you watch. You listen. The universe speaks in whispers and synchronicities. Doors begin to open. Sometimes the ones you've been knocking on. Sometimes ones you never knew existed. But remember this. The magic isn't in the paper or the pen. It's in your belief, your intention, your willingness to co-create with the universe itself. That first night, Sarah sat cross-legged on her bed. The white paper Elena had given her resting on a hardcover book in her lap. The room was quiet except for the gentle hum of her air purifier and the distant sounds of the city settling into night. She held the blue pen loosely between her fingers, just as Elena had shown her, and took 3 deep breaths before beginning. Growth, freedom, purpose. The words flowed from her pen with surprising grace, each letter deliberately formed. As she wrote the final letter, a curious sensation washed over her, like the feeling just before rainfall when the air grows heavy with possibility. Following Elena's instructions, she folded the paper 3 times, each fold deliberate and directed toward her heart, before sliding it under her pillow. Sleep came easier than it had in months, unmarred by the usual anxiety dreams about missed opportunities and dwindling bank accounts. Instead, she dreamed of gardens bursting into bloom, of doors opening into rooms filled with golden light, of staircases spiraling up into clouds. The next morning, Sarah woke feeling different, not dramatically so, but as if something had shifted slightly, like furniture rearranged in a familiar room. She went about her usual routine: coffee, shower, job searches. But there was a new quality to her movements, a sense of purpose that hadn't been there before. Mid-morning, while updating her resume for what felt like the 100th time, something caught her eye. A small detail in her work history, a project she'd nearly forgotten about, suddenly seemed significant. It had been a side initiative at her previous company, something she'd started but never had the chance to complete before the startup folded. Now, looking at it with fresh eyes, she saw its potential. That evening, she wrote her 3 words again, this time with even more conviction. The paper seemed to accept the ink differently, as if it had been waiting for these specific words. As she folded it, she thought about that forgotten project, and an idea began to form. On the 3rd day, she received an unexpected call from a former colleague. "I've been thinking about that community engagement platform you started developing," he said. "My new company might be interested in something similar. Would you be open to discussing it?" Sarah felt her heart race as she scheduled the meeting. Was this the kind of synchronicity Elena had mentioned? That night, as she performed the ritual, the words felt charged with new meaning. Growth wasn't just a concept anymore. It was a tangible possibility. Freedom wasn't just an abstract desire. It was a path beginning to reveal itself. Purpose wasn't just a hope. It was taking shape in the real world. By the 5th night, subtle changes were becoming more noticeable. Ideas flowed more freely. Connections she hadn't seen before became obvious. Even her posture had changed. She caught her reflection in a window and realized she was standing taller, her shoulders no longer curved inward under the weight of uncertainty. The sixth night brought a dream so vivid it followed her into waking. In it she was standing in a vast library. Every book she opened contained blank pages, waiting to be written. A voice, reminiscent of Elena's but somehow more ancient, whispered, "The story is yours to write." She woke with tears in her eyes, and a clarity she hadn't felt in years. On the seventh night, Sarah held the final piece of paper in her hands, feeling its potential. The past week had shown her glimpses of what Elena had tried to tell her. That reality was more malleable than she'd believed. That intention had a power she was only beginning to understand. As she wrote her 3 words for the last time, they seemed to carry the weight of all the previous nights, all the subtle shifts and synchronicities, all the growing possibility. She folded the paper and placed it under her pillow, knowing that tomorrow would mark the completion of the ritual. But something told her this wasn't an ending. It was just the beginning of a much larger transformation. The morning after completing her 7th night of the ritual, Sarah woke before her alarm. Sunlight streamed through her window, casting a golden glow across her room. She reached under her pillow and touched the final folded paper, feeling its energy. Different now, charged with 7 nights of intention and possibility. Her phone buzzed with an email notification. It was from the company her former colleague worked for, following up on their discussion about her community engagement platform. They weren't just interested in hearing more. They wanted to offer her a contract to develop it independently, with the potential for a full-time position if the project succeeded. Sarah's hands trembled slightly as she read the details. The contract would provide enough funding to sustain her for 6 months, while she built something she truly believed in. It wasn't just a job. It was an opportunity to bring her vision to life on her own terms. She immediately called Elena. "Grandmother, you won't believe what just happened," she began. But Elena's warm chuckle interrupted her. "Oh, I think I will," she said softly. "The universe has its own timing, but it always responds to clear intention. Tell me everything." Over tea in Elena's kitchen that afternoon, Sarah shared the developments of the past week. The subtle shifts in her thinking, the dream of the library, and now this perfect opportunity that seemed to combine everything she had been seeking. Growth through building something meaningful, freedom to work independently, and purpose in creating something that could help others. Elena listened with knowing eyes, occasionally nodding as she poured more tea. When Sarah finished, she opened the wooden box once more and removed a small bundle of papers tied with blue ribbon. "These are my night letters," she said, untying the ribbon carefully. "From my first week in this country, when everything seemed impossible, I wrote 3 words too: courage, home, prosperity." She smiled, gesturing around her warm kitchen, at the house she had built into a home over decades. As you can see, the universe was listening. She pressed the ribbon into Sarah's hands. "Use this to bind your 7 papers together. Keep them somewhere safe. They're not just papers anymore. They're a bridge you built between what was and what will be." Sarah carefully tied her papers together, handling them with reverence. "But what happens now?" she asked. "Should I continue the ritual?" Elena shook her head. "This particular cycle is complete. 7 nights, 7 papers. The intention has been set, the energy aligned. Now comes the most important part, taking inspired action. The ritual opens doors, but we must walk through them." She reached for Sarah's hands across the table. "But remember this, the ritual will always be here when you need it. When you face a new crossroads, when you're ready to call in a different kind of transformation, you can return to it. The power lies not just in the words or the paper, but in your growing understanding of how to work with the universe instead of against it." Sarah nodded, feeling the truth of these words in her bones. Already, she could feel ideas flowing for the platform she would build, seeing possibilities she might have missed before. The ritual had done more than just attract an opportunity. It had shifted something fundamental in how she perceived her own potential. As she left Elena's house that evening, the bundle of night letters tucked safely in her bag, Sarah understood that this wasn't just about manifesting a job or financial security. It was about remembering an ancient truth, that we are all co-creators with the universe, that our intentions and beliefs shape our reality in tangible ways. and that sometimes the simplest rituals can catalyze the most profound transformations. In the weeks that followed, Sarah threw herself into developing the community engagement platform with renewed energy. Her home office, once a space filled with anxiety and rejection letters, transformed into a creative sanctuary. She placed her bundle of night letters in a small crystal bowl on her desk, a reminder of the power of focused intention. Each morning before opening her laptop, she would touch the folded papers gently and repeat her 3 words: growth, freedom, purpose. Though the formal ritual was complete, she found that maintaining this connection to her intentions helped keep her centered and focused throughout the day. The platform began taking shape in ways she hadn't initially imagined. Ideas seemed to flow effortlessly, often arriving in those quiet moments between tasks or just as she was falling asleep. She started keeping a small notebook by her bed, its pages quickly filling with insights and innovations that seemed to come from somewhere beyond her conscious mind. One particular morning, while reviewing her notes, she noticed a pattern emerging. The best ideas had come during moments of stillness, just like the ritual had taught her. She realized that the night letters hadn't just been about manifesting an opportunity. They had shown her a new way of working with energy and inspiration. She incorporated this wisdom into her development process. Instead of forcing solutions when she hit roadblocks, she would take 3 deep breaths, just as she had done during the ritual, and allow her mind to settle. Often, the answer would present itself naturally, like a flower blooming in its own time. Her weekly progress meetings with the company became exercises in this new approach. Rather than anxiously preparing for every possible question, she learned to trust in her preparation while remaining open to unexpected directions. Her project liaison noticed the difference. "There's something different about how you're approaching this," he commented during one video call. "It's like you're not just building a platform, you're creating space for something larger to emerge." Sarah smiled, thinking of Elena's words about co-creating with the universe. "I've learned that sometimes the best way forward is to combine clear intention with openness to possibility," she replied. "It's about finding the balance between directing energy and allowing it to flow naturally." Her approach began attracting attention beyond just her immediate project. Other departments started reaching out, asking for her input on their community initiatives. She found herself being invited to strategy meetings, her perspective valued in ways she hadn't experienced in her previous positions. One evening, as she was updating her project timeline, she realized something profound. The platform she was building had evolved beyond her original vision, yet somehow felt truer to her core purpose. By remaining open to guidance while staying anchored in her intentions, she had allowed something greater than her initial plans to emerge. She thought back to those 7 nights of ritual writing, how each word had felt like a seed being planted in fertile soil. Now she could see the first shoots breaking through, not just in the form of a successful project, but in a deeper understanding of how to bring dreams into reality. 3 months into her project, Sarah noticed something unexpected happening. It wasn't just her work that was flourishing. People around her seemed to be drawn to the energy she now carried. Her friend Maya, struggling with a creative block in her design business, was the first to ask directly about the change. "There's something different about you," Maya said over coffee one afternoon. "You're glowing. And it's not just about the new project. It's like you've tapped into something deeper." Sarah fingered the small blue ribbon she now kept in her wallet, a reminder of her 7 nights of transformation. After a moment's consideration, she decided to share her story. She told Maya about Elena's ritual, about the power of written intention, and about the subtle but profound shifts that had followed. Maya listened intently, her skepticism gradually giving way to curiosity. "You really think writing 3 words could make such a difference?" Sarah smiled, remembering her own initial doubts. "The words are just the beginning. They're like keys that unlock something within you, a way of aligning with possibility instead of limitation." That evening, Sarah received a text from Maya. "I did it. First night. 3 words. Creativity. Flow. Abundance. Felt different. Special somehow." Over the next few weeks, Sarah found herself sharing the ritual with others who crossed her path. A barista who confided his dreams of opening his own cafe. A fellow consultant stuck in a cycle of unfulfilling projects. Each time she shared the practice, she felt the wisdom deepening within herself. Elena noticed the change too. During their weekly tea sessions, she observed how naturally Sarah had stepped into her role as a carrier of this ancient wisdom. "You understand now, don't you?" Elena asked one evening, her eyes twinkling. "Why this knowledge has been passed down through generations?" Sarah nodded, watching the steam rise from her teacup. "It's not just about manifesting what we want. It's about remembering who we really are, creators, working in partnership with something larger than ourselves." Her own platform was evolving to reflect this understanding. What had started as a simple community engagement tool was becoming a space for people to connect, share resources, and support each other's dreams. Users reported feeling more empowered, more connected to their own potential. "Your 3 words," Elena mused. "They weren't just about your own growth, freedom, and purpose. They were seeds that would grow to help others find their own path." Sarah thought about Maya, who had just landed her biggest design contract yet. About the barista, who had found an investor for his cafe concept. About the ripples of transformation spreading outward from each person who embraced the practice. She understood now that the night letters were more than just a ritual. They were a remembering, a way of awakening to the magic that had always existed within and around us. Each person who practiced it added their own light to an ancient chain of wisdom, illuminating the path for others to follow. 6 months had passed since that first night when Sarah wrote her 3 words under Elena's guidance. The community platform she developed was now fully launched, with thousands of active users sharing resources, opportunities, and inspiration. But the true success wasn't in the numbers. It was in the stories of transformation that poured in daily. One evening, as Sarah sat in Elena's kitchen for their weekly tea ritual, she spread out a collection of user testimonials she'd received. People wrote about finding their purpose, launching dream projects, and connecting with opportunities they never thought possible. Many had independently discovered the power of intentional writing, creating their own evening practices of reflection and manifestation. "Look at this one," Sarah said, pointing to a message from a user in Australia. "She writes 3 words of intention every night, without ever being told about our ritual. She said it just felt right, like she was remembering something her soul had always known." Elena smiled, running her fingers along the carved edge of her wooden box. The universe speaks in many languages, but some wisdom is so fundamental it emerges naturally, like water finding its way to the sea. Sarah picked up her teacup, breathing in the familiar blend of chamomile and herbs. "The company wants to expand the platform globally," she said. "They've offered me a permanent position as creative director, with full autonomy to develop new features." "And how does that align with your 3 words?" Elena asked, her eyes keen with interest. Sarah paused, considering. "Growth. It's an opportunity to expand not just the platform but its impact. Freedom. They're offering me the independence to shape it according to my vision. Purpose. Every day, I see how it helps people connect with their own potential."
Elena nodded approvingly.
"You've learned to read the signs to see how the universe responds to clear intention. But remember, this is not the end of your journey." "I know," Sarah replied, touching the blue ribbon she still carried. "Each achievement is just a doorway to the next level of growth. I've been thinking about doing another 7-night ritual, with new words for this next phase."
Elena's face lit up.
"You understand the deeper truth then. The ritual is not just for times of struggle. It's a way of continually aligning with our highest potential." As they talked, the kitchen filled with the golden light of sunset, casting long shadows that danced on the walls like ancient spirits nodding in approval. Sarah thought about how far she'd come from that night of desperation 6 months ago. Yet somehow it felt less like a journey forward and more like a return, a remembering of something her soul had always known. One rainy Sunday afternoon, Sarah found herself leading an impromptu workshop in her living room. What had started as a casual conversation with a few platform users had evolved into a small gathering of 12 people, each drawn to the power of intentional writing. Maya was there, along with the barista-turned-cafe owner, and several others who had witnessed the transformations in their own lives. "The magic isn't in the ritual itself," Sarah explained, echoing Elena's words as she distributed sheets of pristine white paper. "It's in remembering that we are all natural creators, working in partnership with something greater than ourselves." She watched as each person selected their 3 words, the room falling into a reverent silence broken only by the gentle patter of rain against the windows. Some chose words quickly, as if they'd been waiting just beneath the surface of consciousness. Others sat in deep contemplation, feeling their way toward the right combination. A young artist, her hair streaked with purple, raised her hand. But how do we know if we're choosing the right words? Sarah smiled, remembering her own uncertainty that first night. The right words resonate in your body. They feel true, like keys clicking into locks. They might not be the words you think you should choose. They're the ones that align with your deeper truth. As the group shared their chosen words, patterns emerged. Despite their diverse backgrounds and goals, certain themes repeated: creativity, abundance, connection, purpose, freedom. It was as if they were all touching different facets of the same universal desire: to live fully, to create meaningfully, to connect deeply. Notice how no one chose words like struggle or trying, Sarah pointed out. Your soul naturally reaches for expansion, for possibility. The ritual simply helps you align with that natural tendency. Later that evening, after everyone had left, Sarah called Elena to share the experience. Her grandmother listened intently, then said something that shifted Sarah's understanding even further. You know, in our family we pass down the ritual from mother to daughter, grandmother to granddaughter. But the truth is, this wisdom belongs to everyone. It's written in the stars, in the cycles of the moon, in the way seeds know how to become flowers. We're just remembering what we've always known. Sarah looked at the pieces of paper scattered across her coffee table, each bearing 3 carefully chosen words. Each one was a seed of transformation, a bridge between what was and what could be. She understood now that her role wasn't just to practice the ritual, but to help others remember their own power to shape reality through conscious intention. 1 year had passed since Sarah first learned the ritual of the night letters. Her community platform had evolved into something she could never have imagined that first desperate night. Not just a digital space, but a movement of people rediscovering their power to shape their own reality. She sat in her new office, sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows, looking at the framed bundle of her original 7 night letters hanging on the wall. Next to them hung Elena's original papers, their Ukrainian script flowing like ancient spells across the yellowed pages. Together, they told a story of transformation spanning generations. Her phone chimed with a notification from the platform's community forum. A group in Singapore had organized their own New Moon writing circle, sharing stories of manifestation and change. Similar groups had sprung up in London, Buenos Aires, and Toronto. The wisdom was spreading organically, each person adding their own understanding, while maintaining the essence of the practice. It's remarkable, she said to Elena during their daily video call. People are adapting the ritual to their own cultures and traditions, but the core remains the same 3 words, 7 nights, written with intention. Elena nodded, her face glowing with pride through the screen. Because truth resonates across all boundaries. The power of focused intention, the sacred space of night, the act of writing as creation. These are universal languages. Sarah opened her journal, where she'd been documenting the patterns she'd observed over the past year. Some people reported immediate changes after their 7 nights, while others experienced more subtle shifts that accumulated over time. But one thing remained constant. Those who approached the ritual with genuine openness and commitment invariably experienced meaningful transformation. I've been thinking, Sarah said, about adding a new feature to the platform, a space where people can share their 3 words anonymously, creating a kind of collective field of intention. Elena's eyes sparkled with interest. Ah, you're discovering another layer. When many people focus their intention together, even from different parts of the world, the effect multiplies, Sarah finished. Like many small streams joining to form a river. As autumn painted the trees in shades of gold and crimson, Sarah found herself back in Elena's kitchen, the familiar scent of herbs and wisdom surrounding them. But this time they weren't alone. Maya was there, along with several other women who had discovered the power of the night letters through Sarah's platform. They had gathered to celebrate something special: the passing of Elena's wooden box to Sarah. It's time, Elena said, her hands resting on the carved surface of the box. You understand now that this wisdom isn't meant to be kept but shared. Each generation adds its own understanding, its own light. Sarah ran her fingers along the spirals carved into the wood, feeling the energy of countless intentions held within. I never imagined that night when I was feeling so lost that everything would lead to this. The women sat in a circle, each holding a piece of white paper and a blue pen. Elena had suggested they perform the ritual together, creating a web of aligned intention that would ripple out into the world. But before they began, she had something important to share. You know, Elena said, her voice carrying the weight of generations. In our family's tradition, we always believed this ritual was our secret. But watching how it has grown, how it has touched lives across the world through Sarah's platform, I understand something deeper now. This wisdom doesn't belong to any one family or tradition. It belongs to anyone who recognizes the sacred partnership between human intention and universal energy. Maya nodded, holding up her phone to show the platform's global intention map. Little points of light marking where people were practicing the ritual across the world. It's like we're remembering something we've always known, just in a new way. Exactly, Sarah agreed. The ritual hasn't changed, but our understanding of it keeps expanding. Every person who practices it adds their own insight, their own story of transformation. They began writing their words, the room falling into a profound silence broken only by the soft scratch of pens on paper. Through the window, the first stars of evening were becoming visible, witnesses to this timeless act of conscious creation. As the group in Elena's kitchen finished writing their intentions, a gentle breeze stirred through the open window, carrying with it the sweet scent of night-blooming jasmine. Sarah looked around the circle at these women, each holding their folded papers like precious talismans, and felt the weight of both ending and beginning. Before you leave tonight, Elena said, reaching for the wooden box, there's one last thing I want to share. She opened it to reveal a hidden compartment in the lid, removing a single sheet of paper that looked older than any they had seen before. This was written by my grandmother's grandmother, the first of our family to bring this practice to America. The paper bore just 3 words in faded ink: courage, legacy, light. She couldn't have known then how her intentions would ripple through time, Elena continued, touching lives far beyond our family. Just as you cannot know now how your intentions will flower in ways you never imagined. Sarah thought about her own journey, from desperation to discovery, from seeking personal success to sharing universal wisdom. Her platform had become more than just a digital space. It was a bridge connecting ancient wisdom with modern understanding, personal transformation with collective evolution. The ritual is simple, Sarah said, touching the blue ribbon that still traveled everywhere with her. But its effects are profound because it reminds us of something essential, that we are all creators, all connected, all participating in the continuous unfolding of possibility. Maya spoke up, her voice soft with realization. It's like the ritual itself is alive, growing and evolving as it touches each new person. Each of us adds our own understanding, our own story. Yes, Elena smiled. And that's the final secret. The power was never in the ritual itself, but in how it awakens us to our own true nature. The night letters are just one way of remembering what we've always known, that our intentions, when aligned with universal energy, have the power to shape reality. As the evening drew to a close, each woman placed their folded paper under the moonlight on Elena's windowsill. Tomorrow they would begin their 7 nights of transformation, their intentions joining the countless others being set across the world at this very moment. Sarah looked at her own paper, bearing 3 new words for this next chapter of her journey: unity, wisdom, light. She understood now that this was never just about manifesting personal desires. It was about remembering our role as conscious creators, about joining our individual light with the greater light of universal possibility. As you hold this story in your hands, know that you too are part of this eternal cycle of transformation. The power to shape your reality has always been within you. Perhaps tonight, as the world grows quiet and the moon rises in the sky, you'll feel called to take out a piece of white paper and a blue pen. Perhaps you'll find yourself writing 3 words of your own, adding your intention to this growing web of conscious creation. For in the end, this is not just Sarah's story, or Elena's family's wisdom. It's a remembering that belongs to all of us. A reminder that in the sacred space between intention and manifestation, between night and dawn, between what is and what could be, magic still exists. And it begins with 3 words written with purpose in the quiet hours of night.